Hello, everyone. Spencer here, and as some of you will have seen already, I've made an announcement on the DPS Discord, and I'm going to go over that here in video form now. So, these changes involve me retiring several channels and changing the lineup of the channels yet again, the entry methods, and all that type of stuff. So, our previous lineup was DPS Public, DPS 10K, 75K, then Elites, and Prime for space, and for ground, it was ground 200 and 800. So that's a lot of channels for the amount of activity the DPS channels have nowadays. The just to be blunt about it, the lower channels were completely killed off by what I believe is the random TFO system. The random TFO system was obviously a nice improvement to the game, but at the same time, it did kill off the need for these really low end DPS channels back in the day before the random TFO system existed, people needed to find groups to get into certain normal or advanced queues. If you wanted to do, say, Undine Infiltration Advanced, you needed to go into something like 10K or 30K and find a group that wanted to do it. Now you can just use the random TFO system and it will automatically find a group for you. And if you use the random TFO system, you're gonna get increased rewards. So the incentive to use these lower DPS channels was just completely killed off. Now, I'm not going to kill off DPS 10K because there's just too many people in it, and uh, that is the entryway for a lot of people in to the league. So I'm not going to get rid of it. It essentially acts as our public facing channel with how low the requirement is to get in. Now that leads me to the first channel that we're canning, and that is DPS Public. Most of you probably have never even heard of this channel. To be honest, it's been dead ever since the DPS split happened like 6 or 7 years ago, probably even longer. It's been a long time. Basically, when the split happened, the people that did the split kicked everyone out of all the DPS numbered channels. DPS Public was included in that, and because it was a public facing channel, there was no invite list to just invite everyone back, and as such, the channel just never recovered. So, Public has been dead for a long time, and as of today, I am officially announcing we are no longer going to support it moving forward. For where the league stands now, DPS 10K essentially serves the purpose that Public did. Now, for the ground channels, there's not enough activity to really require the need of two different ground channels. So I'm canning both 200 and 800 and merging them into a new channel, DPS numbers ground. The entry method for this will be slightly higher at 1000 DPS, but I'm going to make it so it's not just NTTE. It's going to be expanded to also allow Bug Hunt Elite as an entry method. So those of you that like ground, here is a channel that's going to have a slightly higher filter, so you know the people you're getting in with have a bit more experience on ground. And you now have two different queues that you can use as entry methods compared to just the one we had before. For the last channel that I'm going to be canning is DPS 75K. 75K is a channel that was quite an achievement for many people to hit back in the day, and I think it served a nice role for a long time in the league. I just don't think it has a place anymore. The issue we have is that in the current state of elite content, 75K just isn't enough to meet the minimum of what you need nowadays. Back when the channel was made, 6, 7 years ago, was what was needed to do that harder content, but now some of the elite content needs significantly more than 75K per player. You look at Infected Space Elite, that starting group in that needs 110,000 DPS per player just to get past that first stage. So 75K just doesn't serve the same goal it used to. And as such, I'm just going to get rid of it. Now, to try and help bridge the gap and make it so that people still have a way to get into higher channels, I am going to be undoing the changes I made last year to elites, and I am lowering it back down to 150k in infected elite or hive elite. In addition, I am going to be adding infected space advanced as an entry method for elites. Now, by having advanced as an entry method, infected space advanced, that is, 150k in infected advanced is extremely achievable in a pug environment. You can just go queue up for infected advanced, and if your build is good and your piloting is good, you understand how to do, bridge officer rotations. You understand how to pilot your ship to a fairly well degree. You understand that you have to have most of your weapons able to hit as many targets as possible. You're going to get to 150k very easily. That is a number that people are achieving at all sorts of budget levels. I've seen people do this in free tier 5s on free to play characters. I've seen people do this in Malon battle cruisers. I've seen people well exceed that number in a Malon battle cruiser. So it's a fairly achievable number if you sit down and put the effort in, build wise and piloting wise, and it's something that you can achieve completely in a pug infected advanced. So my hope is that even though 75k will be removed, elites is going to be easy enough for people to get into that, those people that got kicked out of 75k still have an easy way to get into a higher channel. Now, the last channel that's going to be seeing a change is DPS Prime. And this channel is a complete mess, and it's because of a mistake I made last year. Last year, I was under the impression when I returned to the game and to the DPS scene that the high end was more active than it was, and I was wrong. My viewpoint was very biased, and quite clearly the high end is not as active as I had thought it was. So Prime is going to have its entry requirements simplified. They're going to be lowered massively. Right now we have wildly various entry methods as shown on the left here. And now you just have to do 600k DPS in ISA, ISE, or HSC to get into Prime. I am open to lowering these requirements further if the community desires it. But for right now, just by me lowering the requirements to 600k, that expands the channel from 30 to 40 people up to somewhere between 2 and 300 people. So hopefully that channel should see a lot more activity. Now, I also am looking at having Prime become a hub for the wider community to get into supported, nanny, or coordinated runs, however you want to call them. And my reason for this is simple. I believe that when your average DPS player goes and looks at the table and they see that these records are over 2 million, approaching 3 million, that it demotivates the hell out of them. If you're someone doing 400, 500, 600k in a channel run and you look at the table and you see people are doing 3 million, that's demotivating. And the issue is that the large majority of players just do not have access to that type of environment where they can get those really high-end runs where they have a dedicated tank in there, dedicated supports. Most people are doing these competitive runs, which just really are a mess DPS wise. You're not going to get a DPS record in a competitive run where everyone's trying to do DPS. So I'm looking at ways on how we can make Prime a hub for this type of play style. I don't want to quite copy what some of the other groups have tried, but it's quite clear, given the fact that the 3 groups that have been setting records are all experiencing the same issues. We've all limited ourselves to just a few people, and as soon as people start to get burnt out, decide that they're pretty much done with the game, it really screws over the rest of the group in a way. So I'm wanting to try and resolve this issue for everyone and have a more public setting that just has a lot more people involved in it. And what this is going to entail, as I detailed on the DPS Discord earlier, is at a minimum I'm going to be adding a section over the next week that has builds, guides, strategies, whatever for these high-end runs. Just explain to people how they're done, explain to them what is required, things like that. And what I'm also hoping to accomplish with this is to open the doors to people that prefer other playstyles. I know that there are people out there that they just want to tank. And I know that there's some people out there where they really like to support. In other games, they would play a healer or whatever. And I want to give them the ability to actually utilize those types of roles in the game because the really high end record runs utilize something sort of like a Trinity system in which we have, the dedicated DPS player, you've got a dedicated tank taking the threat, and you have dedicated supports. It's not healers in this case because the enemies don't do enough damage in this game, but instead the supports here end up being, debuffing, crowd control, shutting down shields, disables, things like that. So I just want to give people that enjoy those alternative playstyles a place where they can explore them and utilize them, and a way for everyone to, mutually have a way to move up on the tables, because this here, where only a few can actually compete, isn't sustainable. You know, it's not sustainable, and it's just demotivating to most of the DPS players to know that they will never have a chance to actually compete at the top of the table. I remember, if we look back 5, 6 years ago, supported runs existed, sure, but not like they do right now. Right now, the way these supported runs are, there's just no chance of the average player being able to compete with them. But back in the day, as just an average DPS player doing channel runs, you could go into a channel run and if you were really good, you had a chance to actually, take a really high spot on the table. And it just hasn't been like that for the past couple of years, and I think that's contributing in some way towards the lack of, or the issues that we're having now, especially the decreasing activity levels at the high end. So hopefully these changes will help address some of these issues, and I still have a lot of things to figure out on my part for this. Figuring out how to approach this with Prime is going to require some thinking, because we, with my team, B team, we've already tried to like expand and bring in more people from the community to get them into these runs. I'm not going to name names, but a couple months back, we brought in several people, including some content creators. We tried to get them to set up supports and tanks and gave them the ideas on how to do these types of runs. And it just didn't pan out. So I'm hoping to see a different result here. I'm hoping to see that there's actually people out there that are interested in, setting up supports and tanks and, getting into this type of environment. I hope that, not everyone in the DPS scene is only interested in just doing, DPS. It'd be nice if there's a couple out there that also are interested in, supporting or tanking. But, I'm not going to go into that too much further. But we'll find out how things go. That's going to wrap it up for today. Thanks for watching. See you all next time.